Imagine this. You're turning 25, you're living your best life. You've got your degree in one hand, you have a few years of professional experience, and you don't have any student loan debt to pay off. That means anything that you're earning can be used for today to spend, live, save, invest, or give. That's the kind of life I want for you. No monthly payments, no anxiety over student loans. In part one of this two-part video series, we covered all of these tips to help you avoid student loans or at least reduce them. I especially love tips 9 and 10. 9 asks you to consider the tuition payment plan so you are not borrowing money but instead cash flowing your education. And number 10 is all about negotiating your financial aid offer, which you can do with a college of your choice. You just have to do it right. If you don't know these tips to help you avoid student loan debt, then make sure you click here to watch that first. Thanks for tuning in to Sisters for Financial Independence. We're three sisters here who've made the money mistakes so you don't have to. They're now lessons for you to learn from. I'm Catherine Agupjan, and I've got more tips to help you avoid student loan debt or reduce what you are borrowing. In case no one told you this yet, college is a financial strategy. Choosing the right college and choosing not to go into a lot of debt can be the most important financial decision you make in your teens and in your 20s. The average student borrower takes 20 years to repay their student loan debt. I don't want that for you. I don't want you to be in your late 30s or early 40s with student loan debt, and your budget has to be competing with paying off debt, going on a family vacation, or saving for your children's future education. If we can avoid student loan debt in the first place, we can have our money work for us instead of struggling to make ends meet. Tip number 11 to help you avoid student loan debt is to graduate on time or even early. One of the fastest ways you can cut your debt in half is to stay focused and graduate within 4 years. Unfortunately, the harsh reality is that the average student now takes 5 to 6 years to finish their undergraduate studies. And every extra semester adds thousands in tuition, in fees, and living costs. And on top of that, it means you are in the workforce much later, which dings you when it comes to earning potential, savings, and investing. When my sisters and I were going to college, our parents made us a deal. They said they would help fund college as long as we finish in 4 years. And that's what we did. I went to college and then had my employer pay for my graduate degree so that I wouldn't have to incur any debt. My sister finished her accounting degree and then had her employer pay for her CPA books and classes and fees. And my youngest sister finished in 4 years, but she did a dual degree and was able to save an extra year from her master's by going through that process. And you might be thinking, how can I make this happen? Well, you have to be diligent and you need to know the requirements for your school as well as your major and start tracking them. A part of going to college is also understanding how things work, staying organized, and fighting through some of the bureaucracy. It means knowing the classes you need to take and tracking what's required and what's not, so you stay focused on the goal at hand. College is a financial strategy, so you need to work all of the angles and alternatives so you can avoid student loan debt. If you are still in high school, consider doing AP classes or doing dual enrollment with a college nearby. See what's possible and make sure you are not wasting your money and your time on courses that's not going to lead up to your final degree. Number 2 is to consider doing some of your general education at a community college. This will be much cheaper and you won't likely have to pay all those extra fees, room and board to finish these kinds of classes. And lastly, take summer classes or max out your credit per semester. That way you get as many classes as you can so that you are not extending your time in school and extending the cost of your time in school. When you get to college, you normally will get a sheet that allows you to track your classes as well as all the requirements for general education as well as your major. Make sure you fill that out every year so you know your progress. When I was in college, I distinctly remember having to fight to have a class counted as a core requirement. It didn't have the right class code, so I had to write a letter. I had to do all of these other things to ensure that class was counted. And you might have to go through that process. You might have to fight some organization bureaucracy to make sure that all of your classes are counted for and you're not doing a lot of extra work. Remember, shaving off a semester saves you tuition, fees, room and board, and all of these other costs and gets you in the workforce that much faster. Tip number 12 is to study abroad strategically. One of my biggest regrets when it comes to college was not studying abroad. I just thought it was going to be too expensive. I also thought I was going to be behind on my studies. But if you use studying abroad strategically, you can actually come up ahead. There's two ways you're going to do this. The first one, if you have dual citizenship, it might be cheaper for you to get your passport, get some sort of residency status within your country, and go to school there. See what those options are. Again, this requires research. This is an alternative to getting that degree. If you can claim citizenship to a country that offers a great education at a low price, this might be your ticket to getting that degree and avoiding student loans. The second, studying abroad is expensive, so you do need to map out what it means and what it means when it comes to graduating on time or even earlier. Make sure the classes you take count for something. I know it's fun, it's a great experience, and I totally recommend that you do study abroad, but you want to do it strategically so that you are not taking on added debt to do that fun time wherever you want to go. Tip 13 to avoid student loan debt is to decline extra aid. A lot of people make this mistake, unfortunately. When they receive their financial aid offer, they accept all the aid that's offered to them without doing any math and calculations. Oftentimes, when you receive your disbursement check for the borrowed money for your school, they might give you a little bit extra to cover food, books, fees, and other spending money. But if you don't need this money, do not borrow the money. Do not sign on the dotted line. You can and should decline the extra. Let's be honest, it can feel great getting that check. It can feel like you've won something, but remember that this is borrowed money. Eventually, it has to be paid back with interest on top. So remember to do the math, do your calculations, and only accept what you need. If you need money for extras, then it's time to get that job. It's time to get that side hustle so you have cash flow coming in instead of you tacking on more to your. Here's the golden rule: borrow only what you need. It can be tempting to just accept that large amount, but it means paying for it in the future. And I bet you your future self is going to thank you if you say no to that extra aid. Tip 14. It's okay to feel broke. I know it's tough to hear, but if you are in college, you likely are broke. You are borrowing to be there. You're borrowing money for tuition, you're borrowing money for books, you're borrowing money for room and board. And if you're working to pay for these, that means that your hard-earned cash is going to these necessities. I know social media can make it seem like everyone has money. You don't need to be spending big money, big borrowed money to enjoy your college experience. You can still have fun, you can get the right education, you can have a good college experience without all that debt plus interest hanging over your head. And listen, I get it, saying no to the fun stuff is hard, but remember, this is temporary. This is 3-4 years of your life where you might be scrimping change, where you might be saying no to a lot of things, where you have thrifted furniture, or you are just staying on campus to save money. When you graduate without student loan debt, that means your first paycheck can be used for what you really want out of life. So don't forget that. This is a temporary step as you work to build your financial strategy. This video is brought to you by Smart Start. It's your guide to adulting and money in 2025. Take it from me as an older millennial, what you do with your money in your 20s can set the tone for the rest of your life. This book is your guide so that you know exactly what to do with your money the minute you graduate from college. Pick it up off of Amazon as an ebook. It will be delivered right away, and I guarantee you can finish it within 1 to 2 days. Now, I realize all of this content is already on TikTok, but how often are you actually taking action off of those videos? This book also has a bunch of action item checklists so that you can follow along and actually get your money system in place so that you have more money to live, give, and pass on to the next generation. Tip 15 is to track your debt. Now, unfortunately, many students don't know how much debt they owe or who they owe it to. And this is scary and a financial disaster waiting to happen. So I would encourage you to get organized, track your debt. Pull up a simple Google spreadsheet and start tracking how much debt you're taking out every year that you are in college. Likely, you will start seeing these amounts rise, and that might dissuade you from taking on more debt as you head into your junior or senior year. Remember that student loans are not just numbers. They are contracts. And with these contracts, you do have to agree to certain things. That means that if you don't keep track of your loans, you don't pay it on time, you don't pay the minimums, it can lead to other consequences. As a student, you're already dealing with a lot of things, but staying organized when it comes to your student loans, when it comes to this kind of debt, can help you be more proactive to avoid borrowing more and get you started with your payments. When I was in college, I made the mistake of not tracking it. And then junior year, I started putting out these numbers. And a part of me felt the anxiety that I would have to pay this much when I graduated college. So I made the decision to actually go off campus senior year. That way I would not need to borrow room and board for my senior year. I did have to work an extra job to pay for rent, but at least I wasn't borrowing extra debt for it. So it's super critical that you start tracking your debt as early as your first semester of your freshman year. Know how much you owe and how much it could balloon up to as you stay in college. Tip 16 is to start paying interest. For some reason, there is this sentence that gets lost in a lot of the loan paperwork, or maybe when you're talking to a financial aid officer. But there are certain loans where the interest starts accumulating the minute that loan is disbursed. This happens for private loans, and this happens for unsubsidized federal loans. This means that when that check is issued for your loan, interest starts accruing. And interest can be your downfall because it gets capitalized and added to your principal. And by the time you graduate, you could be paying interest on interest. So what you want to do is, again, with your list of your student loans, start looking to see how you can pay off interest. At this point, interest will probably a little bit minimal, so you can probably cover it with your side job, with an extra shift from work. And make sure to do that starting again your freshman year so that interest doesn't start accumulating over the years that you are in college. It's super important for us to look at some numbers so that we see the impact of interest on our loan. I am using NerdWallet's student loan payment calculator, and I'm scrolling a little bit to the bottom, and I am going to add loans. See how 4 years of loans and interest add up. I've already entered some numbers here. And what I'm using is $5,000 for the loan amount at 6.39 interest, which is the current interest rate for federal subsidized and unsubsidized student loans. Remember that this rate changes every year, so you might have a different rate first year and a different rate at your fourth year of college. And for this first example, I am going to use the subsidized federal option. So I'm going to check yes, that this is a subsidized federal loan, and I'm going to do that for all of the 4 years that one could be in school. And if we scroll to the calculations to the bottom, we will see that for the 4 years, we borrow around $20,000 and zero interest has accumulated while in school. That's great because it means you're not going to pay so much. And then of course, when repayment begins, you will start paying at $20,000. And because of the accumulation of interest, you do end up paying over $27,000 over 10 years. This is why it's also critical to have a plan for when you need to pay back your student loans so you are reducing interest. Now let's go and toggle some of our variables here. What if we did not receive subsidized federal loans our first year? What if the income somehow did not qualify us? So we now have unsubsidized federal loans. So now we'll look to the bottom and see that for the first year, we have accrued interest of over $1,000 when we are borrowing this money. That's from freshman year. The rest of the years, interest is not accumulating. But what if we switch it? What if we were able to get subsidized student loans for first, second, and third year, but not for a fourth year? Let's see the difference. If we make this unsubsidized, we would have paid $396 in interest while in school. See the difference in that rate? Even getting your loan subsidized for the first 3 years can save you a lot of money. Now, what if none of our loans were subsidized? We're going to toggle no for all the 4 years that were there and look at how much interest has accumulated while in school. Unsubsidized for 4 years, we've now accumulated over $3,000 in interest. By the time we begin repayment, so this is usually 6 months after graduation, you've now owed over $23,000, and now paying off in 10 years, interest continues to accumulate and you now have over $31,000 to pay off. So I think it's super important for you to understand the difference between all of this, why it matters that you should start paying interest if it's accumulating while in school so that you can reduce your debt overall. I will have a link for this calculator in the description. It's from NerdWallet, Student Loan Payment Calculator. So figure out how you can pay the interest while you are still in school. Doing so can save you a lot of money and it can relieve a little bit of pressure when you're finally seeing your final balance. Tip 17 is to use the GI Bill, especially if you or a member of your family qualifies. Using the GI Bill can be a game changer and save you from taking on college debt. The GI Bill offers so much. It can cover tuition and fees up to 100% if you are going to an in-state public university. It provides a housing allowance, so you get a stipend for your living costs. You can get money for books and supplies, up to $1,000 a year for textbooks. That's a lot of savings when you get down to it. And there's so much extra help you can get if you go through your GI Bill. So if you qualify or if you are the parent who served, you can transfer your benefits to your children. This can lead a lasting legacy so that your children can go to college without incurring so much debt or any debt at all. Don't forget this as an option. Review what's possible and again, find alternatives to avoid student loan debt. Tip 18 is to be smart with your major. It is 2025, so you have to be strategic about what you're going to study and which one is going to land you a job after 4 years. Please get real with yourself. If you are going to invest time and money on a degree, make sure it has a return for you. Make sure it gives you the job that you want at the salary that you want. The world is changing fast AI is changing the way we do work, and you need to make sure you have the right credentials and skills to pivot and find the right work for you. Of course, this doesn't mean forgetting about your passions, but it might mean doing parallel paths, studying something that you know has a high earning potential, a high job potential, and a high future-proof potential that can earn you money and get you the salary that you deserve, and then do a second parallel path that allows you to follow your passion, allows you to do what you love to do. Both have a place, and it might mean you do both so that you can get what you want and still have a living wage for it. Competition is fierce right now when it comes to jobs, so you need to think ahead and try to future-proof yourself. So figure out the skills that you can pivot into and the skills that you need for the future. If this video has been helpful, give it a like and share it with someone that you love. Save them from the anxiety and the stress of student loan debt. They will thank you later. Remember that graduating college debt-free is possible. You just have to make smart choices. Don't forget to subscribe to Sisters for Financial Independence. We're sharing our money lessons so you don't have to make those mistakes. Tip 19 is to work the alternatives. By now, we have covered almost 20 tips to help you avoid or reduce college debt. So now you should have an idea of what you need to do. And it likely will mean you combine all of these steps for a certain period of time so that you can maximize your college experience without maximizing your debt. So make sure you have a plan in place. Make sure you create scenarios for yourself so that you can plan ahead and plan for a future without having to pay down and pay off student loan debt. An example might be, what will it look like if you go to community college for 2 years and then transfer to a university? What will it look like if you instead work a full-time job and go to school part-time? Work the angles and work the alternatives so that you have options instead of defaulting to go to college right away and signing on that line to get that student loan debt. A big reason why we need to work the angles and find alternatives when it comes to college is that the cost of college has risen significantly in the past few decades. This means that when I went to school, college costs were not as high and we could get by with accumulating some debt. But now with college costs, tuition fees, textbooks at an all-time high, it's now time to be diligent about the kind of student loan debt we're taking on, the path for college, and the way we want to go about using college as the financial stepping stone. Oftentimes, defaulting to student loan debt, defaulting to go to college right away might not be the best financial strategy for a lot of people. The impact that we need to look at is the changes that will come from the big, beautiful bill. Now, fortunately, there's not a lot of changes when it comes to undergraduates, but there will likely be changes when it comes to repayment periods and windows. Remember that the longer you take to repay your student loans, the more interest you'll pay, which means more money out of your pocket. For those going into graduate school, there's going to be caps in place. And while this is a good thing because that means you won't be able to borrow as much, what will likely happen is that more students will likely move to the private side and borrow private loans. And private loans typically have higher interest rates and less favorable borrowing conditions, which could mean it'll be harder to pay back. So this is something that we need to look at the overall picture of the state of student loans, the state of college, and figure out the best path forward for yourself and your family. Number 20 is to talk to people. Now, while I believe these tips that I have shared with you will work, it's important that you also do your own due diligence, do your research. I'm a talking head on YouTube. I don't know your personal background, your experience, but there might be something there that someone else can offer you if you have a conversation. I also love Reddit, but Reddit advice can be very simplified. It doesn't have the nuance. So, the minute you start talking to people, the minute you're sharing some of your challenges when it comes to getting money for college or university, that might spark some ideas and alternative forms of going to college. Ask your questions. Talk to the dean of admissions. Talk to your community college representatives. Talk to other people who might be able to offer you other scholarships or know of scholarships that are not posted online. Get to know what your network can offer when it comes to college, when it comes to paying for college. And make sure you document everything. Do not let some of your student loan paperwork get lost in your inboxes. Get organized and stay organized. I hope this video has given you something to think about when it comes to avoiding or reducing student loan debt for college. Again, as with the last video, pick 3 things from this video to follow through and follow up on. Don't default to student loans. Don't default to whatever your guidance counselor has told you, and don't default to whatever your parents have told you. Figure out alternatives and find it. You don't have to follow the path that my generation did. Take it upon yourself to really think about what you want out of college and what you want out of your life. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is part 1 of this series. Check it out if you don't know tips 1 to 10. And if you already have student loans, this video is going to be for you so you can map out a plan to pay for it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Bye.